Good morning. Welcome to the Exchange. My name is James Green. I'm the director of the Newlyn Art Gallery and the Exchange. I've been talking to a few of you this morning and hearing lots of your adventures on the field trips. I spoke to one person. They said they were tired but up for it. So I hope that applies to all of you. We're going to start the day gently. I'm going to give you a little bit of a gentle introduction to the venue you're in and to our partner venue, Newlyn Art Gallery. The Exchange is by a long measure the younger of the two venues that we manage here. Newlyn Art Gallery opened in 1895 and it began ostensibly to show the work of artists, members of the Newlyn School, probably the first artist colony in the county. And the artists in the Newlyn School had a habit of working very closely with the community in Newlyn in a very direct sense. They employed many of the local fishermen and their families as models in their paintings. And there was a sense that it was great that there was this connection with people locally, but the problem was that these local communities and families were not having any exposure to the work that was realised. So that was really the purpose of the gallery initially, to show this work to the community who were so much part of it. And I guess over the next 70 or so years, the gallery continued to show work very much just of a local focus, but obviously throughout that whole period of time, West Cornwall was a great centre for work internationally. And over that 70 years, the gallery has operated essentially as an artist-led space, an artist-run space, and presented many of the great and Irish modernists and the generation of artists that followed. By the mid-70s, the gallery was a little bit run down, and the organisation of it was a little sort of chaotic, and I think at times they were only showing exhibitions for a fraction of the year. So there was a decision made that it was time to professionalise the venue, and at that time the first professional gallery curator was appointed, and that appointment in the mid-70s coincided with a new relationship, a funding relationship with the Arts Council, which obviously has remained a very important part of our funding since, and we hope very much will be part of our funding in the future. So from the 70s, one of the things that a succession of curators and directors felt was important was to think about expanding the venue. Whilst the gallery spaces are very elegant and very beautiful and much loved by artists, there was a feeling that the rather domestic scale of the building was limiting to a degree the ambition of the programme. And there were various proposals that were made to extend the building on its existing site. It all came to nothing for various reasons, some to do with local politics, some just because of the complexity of the site. And it wasn't until 2005 when my predecessor Liz Knowles and the then committee came up with an alternative proposal that things really started to change, and that proposal was to think about, rather than just expanding Newlyn, to think about acquiring a separate venue, and that venue was the Exchange, a former telephone exchange building in the middle of Penzance. So I was appointed in 2006, so I arrived about the same time as the construction team, and we worked with the team at the gallery here to redevelop the spaces at both venues, and both were relaunched in July 2007. So we're now almost approaching our 5th anniversary, so it's absolutely staggering to me that so much time has passed, but that's where we are. I'm hoping that you will have an opportunity to visit Newlyn whilst you're here. Tonight we're running a number of projects down there. We have an exhibition of work by Katia Devar, which is very well worth seeing. And we're also running a project that's linked to the Museums at Night programme. One of my colleagues, Kat Gibbard, has developed a project looking at salt and its production, both contemporary production and ancient production, as part of a sort of a history of extraction, a very obvious extractive industry. So the gallery will be open right through the night. So if you're up for that, I would be very impressed. But certainly do pop down when you can. Ian, during his keynote, mentioned that many coastal buildings often are blind to the sea, and this Newlyn is a very interesting example of this. Up until 2006, it had no windows on the seaward side of the building, in spite of it being just 50 metres from the coast, and having the potential of this great view across Mounts Bay to St Michael's Mount, which is one of the great iconic landscape views in Cornwall. However, that's been really dramatically resolved by the new scheme. So before I hand over to Teresa, I just want to say a little bit about the space that we're in now. If it's not obvious, this is our main exhibition gallery space at the Exchange, normally our exhibition gallery space. And when we began conversations with Teresa and Hadrian and the team about the Exchange potentially hosting the convention, there were a number of challenges that we faced, not least how we would fit 170 odd people into this slightly curiously orientated space in terms of its sort of shape. But also we had very profound acoustic challenges. This had a very characteristic acoustic, I will say, prior to this convention. So we were faced with fairly major challenges, and when you're faced with big challenges in arts organisation, you very quickly decide, let's employ an artist to resolve those challenges. And we approached Abigail Reynolds, who has designed the scheme for this gallery, and we're really delighted with both its acoustic properties, I hope you can all hear me at the back, but also the way it looks. It's a great scheme and a great solution. Abigail cites a number of influences in terms of the scheme. She looked at an anarchist cinema in London and a number of modernist architects, and also some local references. She was very interested in Minack Theatre over at Porthcurno, which will be known to many of you, I'm sure. But one of the references that I think is very fascinating is a reference to Gwynedd Pit, which is just outside Redruth. It's effectively an earthwork, a sort of conical amphitheatre. A sort of a pit with a circular centre and a series of concentric circular terrace seating rising up from that central point. And it looks really, for all the world, like a Charles Jenks commission, or it could be a curious piece of Celtic archaeology, but it's actually owned by the Methodist Church and was one of Wesley's favourite locations for preaching. Incredibly, on one occasion he preached, without the aid of any amplification, of course, to a congregation of 30,000 people. So for a model of a beautiful and acoustically sophisticated space, you couldn't do much better. But there's also another interesting reference in that the pit in which it is constructed is thought to be a result of extractive industries that peppered the landscape around Redruth. I know many of you were involved in field trips in that area, and some of you went to Calm Bray, I'm sure will agree that that landscape is marked by a succession of evidence of that industrial history. So it seems a really pertinent reference point to me. So I hope you enjoy your day and a half in this space, and do, if you have any questions about the programme or the ambitions of the gallery, come and see me. I'll be very delighted to talk to you. But now I will hand over to Teresa, who will tell you a little bit more about today's programme.
Thank you, James. Fantastic. Can you hear me at the back again, the acoustic test? Yes? Wow, fantastic. Well, good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here, and it is a kind of extraordinary transformation that this space has gone through in every way, thanks to Abigail Reynolds' work, and the work of many, many people, I should say, who have volunteered to do all kinds of things, from cushion making to curtain sewing to corrugated cardboard folding, and it's been a huge community effort. The Penzance Convention is the third of a series of events, the first of which was called the Falmouth Convention. It happened in Falmouth in May 2010, 2 years ago. And that in turn grew out of a discussion around whether Cornwall should bid for Manifesta or think about trying to do something like a Manifesta that would be grown out of Cornish soil. And that led to the Falmouth Convention, which was a discussion around place and time, and both the locale of Cornwall and also a kind of international discussion about place and relationship with place. One very important aspect of that first event was Lucy Leppard's fantastic keynote, which I think continues to be a kind of agenda for all of us who heard her then, and many of us who simply just read what she had to say, which is still up on the Falmouth Convention website. Her keynote was entitled "Imagine Being Here Now," and it set the challenge of taking responsibility for one's own place. And she, interestingly, suggested a number of ways in which one could reimagine one's own place, one of which was engaging artists to be tour guides. We were very delighted when she came up with this idea because she did so apparently without consultation with the fact that that was exactly what we were planning to do through a device that we called the field trip. And I think you've all now had an opportunity to experience the field trip. So the field trip was introduced in May 2010 as the first day of the Falmouth Convention. And it has become, I guess, a kind of USP of the whole convention idea. And it was applied again in October of last year, when we did something much smaller, which was called the Cornwall Workshop, which happened at a place called Kessel Barton on the Lizard Peninsula. And again, we had a field trip, which was organised by Kenna Hernley and Paul Cheney of Field Club. Some of you will have gone on their field trip yesterday. And through that particular field trip, we managed to entrap somebody we'd been trying to entrap for quite a long time, who will be speaking very soon, and that's Robin Shale, Dr. Robin Shale of Camborne School of Mines, who led us on a fantastic field trip through the geology of the Lizard Peninsula, and who led one of the field trips yesterday with a research student of his leading a second field trip, Sam Hughes. Our partnership with Camborne School of Mines is of inestimable value to the Penzance Convention. It's a really important arrival in the whole convention development, and it has enabled us to pursue very seriously a theme which we had been wanting to pursue but not quite knowing how to pursue, and that's the theme of extraction. The idea of doing a convention with a theme following Falmouth actually came in conversation with Robin Mackay, who again will be chairing a session this afternoon. Robin Mackay is director of Urbanomic, which is a publishing company and intellectual powerhouse based in Falmouth. With Robin, this idea of doing something around the idea of extraction was hatched, and we very quickly understood that this idea would have great potential in a number of different ways, both physical and metaphorical, and as Ian Bowl suggested in his epic keynote, also political and social. I'm not going to talk for very much longer. I wanted to thank Ian for his fantastic keynote and also his amazing contribution to the field trips. I mean, this is extraordinary that he also did a field trip around the Newlyn fishing industry and various stories of extraction connected with that yesterday. And he gave us some key words: extraction, commodity, and commons, which I'm sure we shall return to during the day today. So I would now like to introduce Hadrian Pigott, who's going to be the driver for the rest of the morning. Hadrian is an artist based here in Penzance. It's through Hadrian, who has been the co-convenor of this whole event, that all kinds of local connections have been made, and all kinds of people from different disciplines have been drawn into this conversation, this very rich conversation. Hadrian is the chair of the Penzance Seafront Forum and has been fighting a valiant and wonderfully heroic fight to save those aspects of Penzance's seafront that we all admire, especially around the harbour. In fact, the harbour wall is known amongst conventioners as Hadrian's Wall. So I'd like to introduce Hadrian.